And welcome to Revelation. Welcome to Revelation.
Welcome.
We are at the KAZI Studios.
Yes,
Listen,
we are.
I am Emmanuel, Reverend Emmanuel Lemmy Jr. I guess I would put that on there.
Yes, that would help.
Why are you talking so softly? Come on.
Yeah, we're gonna put that on there. I'm Minister Roseanne. Well, I'm Minister Roseanne, and welcome to all of your revelations. An endeavor is to impart spiritual knowledge, wisdom that will make your journey better. And we also give you a chance here at Revelations to share your Christian experience that will help someone else. And today we want to welcome you as we began a journey with Revelations.
This is our first one.
Yes.
The first one. We want to shout out to our producer, our technical guy, Jay Hunt. He's been working hard to get us going. We have been trying. We've had promos and everything saying when, and we just now getting it together. We're so thankful for that. So today we do have something. We do have something we're going to be talking about. What we going to be talking about today?
Well, we're going to let them know that we are grateful to God for this opportunity given to us, that we're going to be talking about church trends today, church trends. But we do need to let them know that we're live on YouTube.
YouTube live.
Live, we're on YouTube.
At KAZI FM, at KAZI 88. This is different because, both of us are used to being on the radio without having our faces seen. And you're using your radio voice so heavily.
Yes, I am.
Yeah. And so this is live. This is not Memorex. This is live, as you would say, live.
This just live.
That's
this
what
is
you
what
said, yeah. So as we'll get used to it. We'll get used to it. I'm not used to.
I'm not.
I'm more used to being during the weekday doing my gospel music, and nobody has to see me. Nobody knows what's going on.
Nobody.
Behind the scene, but all of that is being seen now. All of it.
Yes, Lord, it is.
So. Yeah, so we're gonna be and you can tell it's live because we're not. It's not that we don't know what we're doing. We do. We just trying to see if y'all can catch up with us. But we gonna be talking about church trends today. And somebody might say, well, what do you mean by church trends? Well, do know when you talk about trends, you're talking about a general direction in which something is developed or changing. And we do know in 2024 and beyond. Yes. The church is changing. It's not like it was when I was growing up, for sure. I'm sure you can attest to that as well.
And I think that the COVID really knocked us off the map a little. Let me just say it like that, because many things have happened. Although every church is unique in its own way, they all share a common goal to bring more followers to Christ. And achieving the goal, some leaders, they must do a lot different than it was before. The doors was open, but there was a not wanting to go now. They got more comfortable, laid back. If you can start sending in your tithes and offering through the mail over the Cash App, the Zelle, and just as long as you get them in, they felt like, okay, I'm having church on the sofa. Yeah, I don't have to get out of my pajamas. I don't have to move. But the trend of coming into the sanctuary, greeting and meeting others, it has truly changed, because you never know your touch of a handshake or a hug to sister or brother at the church will probably lift them, inspire them, motivate them. You don't know what they've gone through, but that's not what we're doing anymore. The phones are not ringing saying, hello, how are you doing, as some ministries go on in the church. The trend has become to where they're assuming, and the texting, girl, I hadn't been able to text you, but I just wanted to know how you was doing. So there's a lot of trend that has happened that you really have to look at the society and what's going on today. Our youth is not having what I would say a place to where they go on Saturdays. They don't do any of that anymore. So the trend has, I'd say we need to beef up. We need to do something. The attendance in the church is totally down. There may be a few that will come, but experience a lot of non-members. It's not a crowd. You can get a seat anywhere. You can come and you can stand if you want it, but there's availability of seats in the house anywhere. And it's just not the small churches. It's the mega churches as well. So a lot of things have happened that has disrupted the services, has put us in a different state of mind. We don't seem to want to move forward, don't want to work together. A lot of backlashing on who's doing what and what's going on and how should we and why not stay at home. I can look at 4 or 5 sermons on the television off of YouTube, different pastors are preaching. And that started, and I think it was a great start when we went into COVID. You could get different church services. The pastors would go into the sanctuary and preach their morning service without anybody there. And that was to help the members. You could go on and look at your church having church. But now that they're back open, the doors is not being swung back and forth for someone to come in. It's just open.
Well, that was one of the trends that talked about the endangered church. The church that was stable seems to be almost becoming endangered. It is, as you have stated, that people now have gotten into the mode of, hey, I can have church at home, or I can be at home and have church. No excuse for that.
No.
But with the technology that we have now, it makes it it makes it convenient, because not only on TV, but you can get on your phone, get on your iPad, get on your laptop.
Anywhere, yes.
Yeah, and view church. Back in the day it was, local church. Now you can view church that's way across the world.
Yeah.
So those things are trending for the church today. I think in this report it says that there's almost 90% chance your church is either growing or declining. Only 12% of respondents reported that their church was stable, neither attracting new people nor shrinking. So it's kind of like at a flat, just kind of a flat line, just neither growing nor is it declining. And it's kind of, as you stated, people are just at that point of, hey, I can get up and go to church this morning, or I can just stay at home and flip on the TV, get on.
True.
Or even, it might sound strange, but stay in my bed and just pop up my little iPad. And now I'm not saying that that's a good way to have church, now, unless you are really
down and out, sick,
yes,
and can't move, unable. Because back in the day when I first started on the radio some 40 years ago, it was only many of the nursing homes, and they couldn't get out, so they heard the voices over the radio. And now you can get the YouTube and pull up, as we're doing this podcast, you can pull up any subject, anything that you want to listen to now. It's not just we're on the radio, we're in this community, we're trying to help one another to, what are we really doing? Trying to tell them that the church doors are open, and they already know that. The church doors are open, and what are we doing about it? How are we trying to expose the doors being open and no one's coming in? How are we letting our public help us by what is it that we can do that will make our people get a little closer? Because you're not going out working in the community. You're not stopping by the nursing homes. That's part of church ministry. You don't go out and visit at the hospital. because people still say that maybe COVID is out there, and girl, I don't have time for that. So what are we doing? We're not having Tuesday night brunches at the church, reading the Bible study. The women are not coming to church to pray. I don't want to be around her, girl. I haven't done it. So what is our faith? What is our belief? What are we trending on teaching one another about that building that is called the Lord's house?
Well, part of it too is that people view. We always say they view church differently, but when you talk about the building, that's one of the things that I think that COVID has taught us, that we are not to be locked into the building. We got to get outside of the building.
That's true.
One of the things, I mean, I stick with the scripture that says, if I be lifted up, talking about Christ.
Yes.
Now you got to really stand on that, and you got to really move forward on that, because while it is true that he will do the lifting, when we lift him up, he'll draw. But
all of us, yes.
that takes work. That takes work. Just like you say, you've got to develop ministry, because now we again, as we're trending into this new area, and one of the things it talks about is the millenniums. That's another thing that we have to reach out. These millenniums, these new, what they call them, Gen Z, this new generation.
Yes.
Because they view church very differently.
Totally.
Yeah, and so it's one of those things of raising the question, well, how do we bring them in? Now, some people have some methods that they...
back in the day, I don't know about you, how you were raised, but I was a PK kid back in the day. I was raised by a preacher, and he was a pastor of a church, and he did not allow the child to rule the house. If they said, get up, it's time to go to church, I don't want to go today. No, Lord, not in this house. No, back in the day, and there was switches by the front door, and razor straps and belts, and we didn't understand. No, anybody staying home in this house. Mm-hmm. And so we was up for BTU, Bible study, Sunday school training union, and looked like we were the only children there. I didn't understand nothing like that, and we didn't get home until after evening worship. And, they don't even have any of that going on no more. The 3 o'clock service, and girl, that's just too hot. Once I get home and undress, I don't plan on going back. Girl, that's just too much. It's too hot. But that was what brought us together. People would stay, and after church, the elder sisters would be cooking in the kitchen so that we could eat. We had guests coming, 3 o'clock service, and we didn't get out till 6 or 7. But, they were in the kitchen cooking, and we had evening church. Things like that doesn't happen. I mean, I have my granddaughter, and to tell her to get up, and I said, do you go to work today? No. And I have to call the job to see if it's a lie or not.
That's old school. That's old school.
That's it. Because these kids. Look here, I got and next thing I know, you been left the house because you know what time I get home from church. So just so that you'll say I went to work early.
I went to work early. Yeah.
But the trend the trend changes, because I don't care. The only way that we got to stay home from church is Mama had to go tell Daddy that she's sick, she can't go, I'm going to have to leave her here. And then Dad would say, well, who going to stay with her? Because, who going to stay with her? And he'd look upside her head because you the first lady. So everything was put beside the bed for you to stay right there. You couldn't go anywhere. But I tell you, nowadays it's nothing like it was. I was raised on a different era. You had to go, and we don't have BTU on Sundays in the evening. We don't have an hour Bible study in the morning before Sunday school. It truly has changed. Truly it has. And I know sometimes I get lazy because I work late, and I get lazy and I don't want to go. And I go to the YouTube and I pull up a sermon, and next thing I know, it is sermoning me in my sleep. So how are we really getting the work of the Lord through on Sunday morning? Are we, some of us is really sitting there, but if you drink that cup of coffee, you sitting there and you done had a good breakfast and you call yourself watching service, I'd like to know, how do you stay up?
Well, that's a good question, because some would argue and say, well, I'm still receiving the word because
Through sleep.
Because if you look
Okay.
at it, I'm not a scientist, but scientifically they say
It going through us.
and I know it's true, when you're sleeping and you've got the TV on, you are still hearing it. And sometimes for me, if I get the TV on, it's almost like I'm in the midst of that, dreaming some of that. So you got to watch what you listen to too as well. But there is that idea of hearing that, but I think it's more so going back to what you said earlier, and what you said earlier was that we need that fellowship.
Yes.
Because the fellowship allows me to know that, hey, I'm not going through this by myself.
That's true.
I have others that are dealing with it as well. And we can't allow social media or the community or the world to make us isolated, because we need each other. We cannot be isolated. You cannot, the old saying says, no man is an island, which is true. You cannot do this by yourself. You got to have help. But some people just feel like, hey, I can do it by myself. I can make it by myself.
No.
But that's when you start going down that road of isolation, which is very dangerous.
It is.
How do we deal with this trend, even with our new the new generation, the people whose mindset is, hey, I can either go to church today or I can not. I mean, I can remember that church was
It was a
long
day.
day, a
Yes,
long
it
day.
was.
You had. And then don't let association come, because then everybody would always talk about association when it was just so much happening.
It was too much. You get up, you go to one meeting, the next meeting, and then night service.
And then by the time, you lay down, and you got to get up and do it all over again.
It was a 5-day convention.
Yeah.
I call it convention because they definitely kept everything going. The sisters, the mission had a day, the Urshas had a day, the deaconess had a day. I remember all of them kept moving forward at the association. But like you said, the trend has changed, because we don't have the association like we used to. It started on a Sunday and it ended on a Sunday night. So a lot of things is cut down. A lot of things that you're used to, opening musical. We haven't had many musicals over. I know that the one musical that we look forward to would be St. James musical. The choir does not expand from one side to the other. It's like people just, they're not coming anymore.
Right.
And so where that trend and what happened to stop all of that, we've got to pray it back. That's what I know. It's prayer will do many things for us.
Right.
And
now there's we're able to see live chat. So we got a live chat, and the question is, can we say that we have dropped the ball? This is from one of our viewers. We won't call their name, but the question is raised: can we say that we have dropped the ball? We are not teaching what we have been taught. So the question is, have we dropped the ball?
That question I would answer is, it starts in the house.
Okay.
Because in the house in our era, we was raised by certain rules. Have we dropped the ball? That would be asking the parents that's raising or is teaching the children. Do we allow them to do what they want to do, or as long as they're in the house, are we running our house the way we're supposed to? It's supposed to be no's. I remember raising my two sons, and I didn't understand how I'm paying all the bills and you going to put a note on the door say not to come in. So I just thought I'd take it off the hinges. And ain't no door closing up in here, and you're paying the bill. So when you drop the ball is that we're not teaching and not following through what we know to be right. Because if you let them get away with one thing, they're going to fall in that trap if they think that they got you. On Sunday morning, my grandmother said, I don't care who sleep. If they can get up at 5 o'clock, and we didn't have a car. My grandmother could not drive, but people were coming to pick us up, so we had to be ready at 8 o'clock. Now, I didn't understand why we had to go to bed at 10 o'clock on Saturday night. I don't have to go to school. But we had to get up to eat breakfast, to get dressed, to make sure that we were doing the order for us to get to church. We're not teaching what we've been taught. The generation of today, they have no clue that mom and dad is fighting fire for them. Their souls is being attacked in more ways than one, because God is using us to teach his children and us to use to be helpful to others. So if we're not walking in the light for the Lord, yes, the ball has been dropped because the light went out. Where did it go out? It went out when we stopped. I can't get these kids to do. No, that's when we raise our hand. God, you said that you would never leave us. You would always be there to guide us, to keep us, to protect us. So are we, as the ball is dropping, are we calling God, help, please help, show me the way, guide me, instill in me what I need to see to get the children or get my child back to where we needed to be? Are we praying in the house is number one thing? Are we praying over the family? Are we praying with the family? Or do we not allow that to happen because I don't want to come to the table and do no prayer, I'm sick of all of that? We don't even eat out of the dishes we used to. We got more paper plates going than anything. So what time do we talk to our children? When do we sit down to have a throw away the phone or put it aside time? The trend has changed. The balls has dropped. They know it has dropped because it's right there in your house in the front. We eat in the bedrooms. We eat somewhere else, and we don't have family gatherings to be able to talk. And when we do have family reunions, then we want to start fighting, cussing, and talking ugly and shooting. And when would somebody ask us?
Well, I agree. When we talk about dropping the ball, I think it's the mindset that we haven't learned how to keep up with the changes
Of today or yesterday?
All throughout. I mean, I'm not talking about, not being what we're called to be as parents and grandparents, but we also have to be mindful of the changes and know how, and that's where, prayer can come in. That's where learning how to adjust, because when you talk about has the ball been dropped, I think it's the idea that we've allowed maybe the community, things around us to make that adjustment that we should have been. I go back to the idea as you were talking about the teaching of our children, bringing them up, because we got to do it. We got to be mindful of the word says, train up a child the way they should go. So training them up is. We may have dropped it in the sense that we may have said, well, I'm not going to do what my parents do. Or,
that's true.
I went to church all day on
long.
Sunday. So, hey, I myself may take that break, but then if I take that break, I got to be mindful of that the kids are following my pattern. Yes. So we can drop the ball in that sense. And so I think that old school is not totally bad.
No.
New school is not totally bad. You got to mix it in
together.
And we have got to now move to, because we still got to look at from 2024 beyond. The church is, because many of us are passing on. And I'm passing on. So now we got a generation coming up. It's going to be, and that's part of the trend that it talks about. It's going to be a whole new church. And I don't want to get off on my soapbox that church does not look like it was when I was growing up, because you had the baptismal pool, you had the choir stand.
Yes.
Now you got a stage, I think I've shared with someone, church is just like a nightclub.
It's almost, yes, because you know what, really, when you said that, like a nightclub, you go to church now, the pulpit is not where the ministers sit, the guest ministers, everybody's in the audience, they sitting together. It is a platform now. You can either come up and what we call the pulpit, the podium. Some of them don't even have that. They bring it in after the choir have finished and they set it up, you know. So it's a lot of trends of changes that has been made. But I wonder how have we sought, may I say, sought God's direction on that? Or is that something that I'm the pastor, I want to do, or I want to make this change because I'm more comfortable with it like this. I don't want my house to be like Rev. So-and-so's house.
But that's a loaded question, because somebody will say to you, I am praying, and I've been led by God to move in this direction.
Okay, and if you led by God, do you take that as a direction that you want your membership to go? Because most people, you know, you do want to have some, let me put it like that, you do want to have some elderlies in the church. And if they say, Pastor, I'm not used to all of that up there and all of that, you know, I couldn't go to church with a pair of pants.
Well, that's different now. It's totally different now.
I could not enter the church house with a pair of pants on. Not even the choir rehearsal. It had to be little bitty skirts, socks, and little shoes.
Yes.
So much have changed. And do we sought, or do we ask, or do we communicate with God on each step that we make? Because of the changes that life brings us, there is a direction that God has. Are we praying His will for us? Are we praying His direction to us? Are we praying the insight of His will that He gives for us? Are we praying His deliverance to us, that we are actually hearing from God, and we've removed, you know, that SOS I always say, we allow God to feed us in a way to where we only can see and hear Him say, okay, because I know God has a way of getting and allowing us to, as me, He will direct. You know, when you are preaching on Sunday morning, you done learned on Saturday night, you done stayed up, walked.
Well, not Saturday night, hope before Saturday night.
Yeah, well, I'm
talking
talking.
Saturday night special.
I got you. Okay, I'm not gonna go there.
You
but
should be started Monday morning.
No. You know,
okay.
it's for me. It has to.
I thought
catch that for me. Thank you. But you know, you have to, when God, when you're about to stand to deliver the word, it's like, as a pastor, it's different. It's a every week thing, because you want to have a different word. You go to Him and you pray and ask Him, what should I say? What direction? For me, just being an associate minister, I start the whole month before the date that I have to stand, and it looks like, Rep, that Saturday night I'm still tossed. I wrote it out and I thought I got it all together. But Sunday morning when you stand, that's what you wrote last night. I got something else for you to say.
It happens sometime, but I pray not all the time. But yeah, but now here's the thing, because as you were talking, here is the thing that I'm hearing that I've talked with some of my friends about. We've had some discussion. A lot of this is leadership in the home, leadership in the church.
Yes.
The home is to make that connection with the church, the teaching. But as we look at what is happening now, as you even talking about praying and asking God for direction, that leader is to be praying, because he's the shepherd, he's the leader, looking for, and even because because the scripture said, I don't want to quote the scripture and get somebody saying, that ain't right. the scripture says that we're the watchman on the tower. That pastor, that leader is the watchman on the tower.
Yes.
So they should be looking for the coming
direction.
trends.
Okay.
And as you're looking for, that even goes in the home. Because see, what God has created is not against each other. The home and the church, they should be working together, because the leader cannot lead unless he's managed his home. And so that leader has to be on that tower looking to see the trends. But the caution there is, you've got to be careful that as you look at for the trends that are coming, you don't mix with the trends in order to be popular. You got to stay with the word.
As a pastor, let me ask you, how do you feel about the changes that have gone on in the church, the trends that is needed, and then those that have lacked in places? Have you replaced some things to move your church in a direction to where you feel that you've heard from God lead you?
That's a challenge, because when you have two scenarios.
Okay.
A church that's been planted,
Okay.
where it's I don't want to say easier, but it's a little different, because you've established that church according to God and you're following in that direction. But when you have a traditional church, meaning the church that's been well established,
Okay.
a church that says we've been doing this, and I'm not saying the church where I'm at, but they've been saying, hey, we've been doing this for so long. Why? So when you look at it, let's just take it from that standpoint of an established traditional church. The teaching and preaching is vital, because now you have to teach, not for the purpose of getting your way, but teaching and preaching that God can be seen, and in the direction that you're going, they understand. And not everybody going to understand, because they're going to be like, well, why are we going this way? Why is pastor doing it? Well, if you're teaching and preaching and standing on the word, living as best as you can, it doesn't make it easier, but it is very helpful. And so that's, to me, is the way that I see of it being kind of operated, is that you got to do a lot of teaching and you got to do a lot of preaching. Teaching, because you're helping them, because Sunday morning is not the time to come and expect that,
they want to hear all this teaching. They want to hear the word.
That's worship. Now, we have moved to, that's another part of the trend. We've moved to this trend at one point where some would just say, hey, I'm not going to do all this hooping and all that. I'm just going to teach. Well, I'm not going to get into that. But I know when you are excited about God and his word, you can't help but have joy. I'll leave it at that.
At your church, and I'm jump on this. Do we allow God to move in the church, or do we shorten it because of time? Many churches, they would have church, and if it went over the time that you was allowed, do you allow God in? Do you? I come from when God lit up the building, and I say he showed out in the building. The pastor didn't preach. He said, "Oh, God done did what he come in here to do." So I'll save this sermon for next Sunday. So, I mean, the trend, it has changes, because we're trying to make sure that we give them the word. But if God come in like lightning and he comes through a song and prayer and praise, I love to hear a prayer that will take us to another level and remind us of where we come from and how we've embellished on the things that God has really done in our life. And the old traditions, that's what I come from. You said traditional churches, but the new generations, we don't have back in the day, we had the deacons that would holler out the old traditions and do prayer before service. Now we have a group of young people that want to sing songs before church gets started and keep it live just with music, and they're not singing slow songs. They want to make it, you know, but they don't take the old church. I remember I was at one church where they had the 7 o'clock service, and the old lady said that all of that banging stuff too much for my ears. She said, what I want, baby, is I want y'all to keep us back. I'll come to 7 o'clock service because all that other stuff is too much for my ears. Them drums, they get too loud, and baby, if they don't stop all of that, I'm gonna stay at home. And I know that the new generation is, they love to move, to have their swag. They love to have it going. And when you are looking out and watching them doing the 7 o'clock service that their parents have made them come to, they have their ears to one side and they lean, and when they're going to get through with this church, it's quiet, it's too dead in here. The traditional churches is for, I do believe, for the generation that was brought up with amazing grace, was brought up with understanding that it's nobody but God that's done where we are today, has brought us in. Many of the traditional churches, the elderly, they took care of the church. They took care of the church. The young people, they're not going to do that today. If they make $200 that week, no, that $20, girl, I had to get my nails done. I don't know about what you're talking about. The changes, it has to start at home. You have to lay this paycheck down. And why do you say we don't have it? Well, I have to, first off the top, I have to give my tithes to the Lord. And why you have to give him that much? Because he's asking for 10% of every dollar that he allows me to make. Well, just give him half. I don't want a half a blessing. You have to speak in existence the things that began, as you say, at home. We have to speak those trends. This is something that we've got to do in order to make it to the next move, because our blessings come out of helping, like I said at the beginning, one another. God teaches us that he's going to use us to show, to help, to walk through. That's why I say God give us the insight of things that he allows us and he wants us to do. We can't back away from that. If you're praying for wisdom and insight from the Lord, be still and know that he's coming forth. That's what I say. That's a verse I put right off in there. Just be still, because he do show up. And when he shows up, tradition, non-tradition, non-domination, all of that plays a role in, are we following God's will?
Well, that's I mean, we should, but when you look at it, we are in a totally different time. The things that we should have been doing
back then,
keeping
it alive.
Yeah, because even now, and that's not to say that those that we, the new generation is coming up didn't get the word, but even in this that talks about some of the trends, one of the trends it talks about is that they're reshaping the church.
They are.
It's very different. And so it goes back again to the constant teaching, because you've got to teach them. You got to help them to understand the principles of tithing. You got to help them to understand, because we
starts at home.
Prayer.
Uh-huh.
Well, but I know it starts at home, but how do you
put that paycheck out there?
But how do you get them to understand that when your attendance, when you have very few that are coming to church, when you have your attendance, I'm not whatever church it is. I mean, the larger churches, they're declining too. They may not be declining as much as maybe a smaller church, but still the thing is, people now have a different mindset, and so trying to get them to understand the value of teaching, not that they totally reject it, is kind of difficult. So we know that it will start at home, but that means that the church has to make that effort in its own way as it looks at the new trend that's moving, or the trend that's moving. How do we help the parents? Because even the newer generation, has to learn that even now, even in our area, even in this Central Texas, Austin area, we have had a shift in pastors because a lot of the oldest seasoned pastors have moved on. We now have a change, a shift, and when you have that shift and that change, yes, there is that praying, but you're also going to have that whole different reshaping of the church and that's why I said, church doesn't, because even part of this in this article talks about the worship space.
Yes.
The worship space is different.
Yes.
Some of that depends on finances, because if you don't have the finances to buy the kind of building you want, then you have to be in a space that says, well, I can't afford to have a baptismal pool, so I got to look at how do I have a baptismal pool, have one available. So these are the things that the leader has to look at, but also try to help the family. I think that it's vitally important that you do have a family ministry or some sort of ministry to help. But even in that, let's say that they're not doing it at home. What's to say that the church can't have a financial ministry that will work toward helping kids to understand finances?
A lot of the newer churches, I look on their website and they have ministry for financing. They have ministry developed. They even have, I remember we had started with having youth church. The young people fall asleep. I visit a church in Houston, not in Houston. It's the IROC in Dallas. And I was a stunt. They have a swimming pool that they've built at the church. They have a basketball court, and to get the young people. And for the summer, there's camps going on that they have right there at this church, if I'm not mistaken. And on Sunday morning, the pastor got up one Sunday as I was visiting. You can't walk in there with no gum, and I didn't understand it at first, but I caught it because too much gum was up under the seat. And he stood up and he said, all the young people was in the balcony. And he said, any of your father or your mother with you? He had a couple of the young people to stand, and they said no. He said, well, come downstairs and find them, sit with them. What is this? Did you all talk to them before they get ready to go off to school the next day? Did you pray with them? Did you ask them on yesterday how was their day after they went out and played with their partners? So when is family time that you communicate? These are the type of ministries that you have to build, you have to start. Even though that's too much, or I'm always at church, but I found that they grow when they are with one another that is leaning and depending on the Lord. They grow. So I feel like some of the old and the new that you were talking about, it has to be ushered in, and it has to come from the leaders of the church, just like the leader in the house says, we're not going to do this. Ain't no doors going to be shut in my house because ain't nobody paying no bills in here but me, and I need to be comfortable to see. I don't want to have to break through. I don't feel like that. What is our chat person saying? What do we have? Another question?
No, we don't have one, but we're running close to the end. And I mean, now this podcast, generally in podcasts, you don't have breaks, and so we run straight through. But I think that they are kind of much in agreement with some things. But I think as we kind of get close to wrapping up, I think that what we're saying is there's leadership in the home and leadership in the church.
Yes.
And all of that has to be connected because we're moving to a new reshaping of the church. We're moving to a new type of leadership, younger leadership.
Yes.
The Caesar Clarks and those are passing on.
Yes.
And now we're having a whole new generation of leaders. And if you've got young leaders, those young pastors are going to have to, man up and help.
Yes.
And that can be another challenge. But I think it goes back to what you're saying, the prayer, seeking God. I think the teaching and the preaching. I think it also has to do with the family unit. I think the church has to now begin to shine its light even greater, because we're living in a time where darkness is trying to overtake it. And so, because there are so many things. I mean, I've been in the school settings where, we teach now by iPads and stuff, and by computers.
Yes.
And when you come home and you have those iPads and those computers.
Yes.
But when you get to the church, you may not have that.
Well,
so
they
that's
have their phones now.
Well, yes, but that's a trend that the church would have, and that's a whole nother subject. We're about 4 minutes out, but just to even touch on that says that the church has to look at that trend from 2024 on and say, how do we take technology? Because our seniors will say, well,
I ain't got all that.
I don't have all that.
Yes.
We now, churches now have, phone, you can pull up your church on your phone, on your iPad.
That's what I was telling you.
But that's the way to keep up with it. And so it goes back to teaching. Teaching, hey, in the family unit, the head has to be the priest, the protector, the provider.
That's it.
And he has to be the one to lead out. He has to be the one to say, come on. One of the things that I learned is that with my kids as they were growing up, communication was important. I would talk to them even when they were young. Mm-hmm. So when they got older, they don't have a problem with talking with me. They don't have a problem with
and you
saying,
have to
hey,
keep that open. You have to keep the gap open, because if you don't, you will lose. Pastor, you will lose your children. By, like I said, when do you have the hour to sit down and talk? It used to be dinner. They don't do that anymore. You will lose your children, don't know who they walking and talking with, don't know who they running with, and then they want to stay in their room. You don't know what then happened that day. Make it a point to grow with them as they are developing new areas and things. And I thank you for this today, because there needs to be more leadership development ministries going on for growth, and not just in the home, but it also, we have ministries for parents as they are trying to move to the direction of God would have them, and the kids don't think that they should go that way, because my kids would often call me, can I please talk to my mom and not God? I would get that. I don't know if anybody else got that, but every time I turn around, you want to talk about what God said for us to do, and God said, I didn't get it. And I told him that I got my instructions from the Lord because I'm the head of this house. I also got to be able to see what you all are doing, and through God, my insight came from believing that he would take care of you all if I would follow him. And I needed to be led in the direction. So I wasn't going to have nobody going to jail, because I know I wasn't going to be able to get you out. I really wasn't going to come to see you, because you down there because I done taught you right and you want to go do wrong. So leadership comes from the home, the church. But today we need to come together and work it to where we can hear and see the new trend going forth from 2024 on. Because if we don't, we're just blocked.
Well, I think as we're getting ready to wrap up, I think in order to move forward with looking at this new trend, I think it's a coming together, coming to the table, and talking about it, discussing, looking at those teachable moments, sitting down, leaders sitting down with their youth and their youth team, and talking about some things. What are you missing? What are you lacking? What can we? Because they will speak, even though they're quiet sometimes. Yes. And then also, I don't think there's even a problem with everybody coming together, not just doing your annual church conference, but doing a time where you can have a discussion. Well, Pastor, I can't stand all this bumpity-bump music. Yes. Okay, well, sister, let's understand why this music is this way, and then bringing it together with everybody, because, Amazing Grace, being a musician, Amazing Grace can be played in several ways.
Yes, it
just
can.
Just as long as it's Amazing Grace.
We got to get out of here.
There's variations on the theme, that we would call it in the music world.
Yes.
And you would still recognize it as Amazing Grace. But I think it's one of those things that we would have to look at. This has been good. Oh, our time is up. We started 4 minutes late, but we are endeavoring here at Revelation to enlighten you, but we're endeavoring also to come every Friday
from 6 to 7.
6 to 7. 6 to 7.
Tune
God's
in.
gonna work that thing out.
Yes, He is. Yes, He is.
This is our first one, and so we're excited about that. I hear the music.
Yes.
Thank you for those
being
that
with
are,
us in our first.
Yeah, it says living before our children is what our chat person says, and that's so true.
That is.
Thank you so much for your being on the chat and listening and watching our podcast. And so we're trying to do it in live, so that when people chat, I want to be able to see it, and then we can talk about it.
Yes.
So now the good thing about it, see, this is YouTube, so if we go overtime, we're still good because they won't cut us off.
Praise the Lord.
But my producer, Jay Hunt, he's back there. He's like, okay, the music is playing. Thank you, Jay,
thank you so much.
Your work.
Let me just say, tune in next week as we endeavor to impart spiritual knowledge, wisdom that will make your journey better. I'm Minister Roseanne.
I'm Emmanuel Lemmy Jr., Reverend Emmanuel Lemmy Jr. I don't mind.
Praise God. Tune in and listen to us next Friday from 6 to 7. Be with us and encourage others to tune in. I've enjoyed the first live, and I hope that we said something or brought to mind to you something that God is training us through.
And one of the things, too, as we get ready to go, that I want to also mention is that we're going to be allowing you to share your revelation experience of how you've been enlightened. So look for that. Look for that for sure. Be blessed.
Be blessed. And may, as I always say, may the blood of God keep covering you all. Until next week.